So, the illusion's gone. The pool is still warm, the resort breakfast still costs more than rent, but something's cracked. In part 1, we watched them play pretend. Free, powerful, untouchable. But in part 2, the mask slips. More masks. This is where things unravel. This is where Kendall's rebellion crumbles under the weight of daddy issues and PR disasters. Where Rachel stares into a 5-star mirror and doesn't recognize the woman staring back. This is the part where they try to escape and fail. Welcome to part 2 of Succession x White Lotus. Let's watch the fantasy burn. Alright, let's keep it real. By now we've seen these characters try to fake freedom, smother their feelings and stage little rituals of dominance like insecure Greek gods. But here's the final trick. They all want to escape, and none of them make it out. Not the billionaires, not the influencers, not the spiritually constipated honeymooners, and definitely not the concierge with a drug habit and a death wish. You'd think going to paradise for a week would fix something. Nope. These people pack everything. Sunblock, silk shirts, crippling identity crisis, and they bring it all with them. Paula, the one person who isn't rich, sees through the whole charade. She's surrounded by this white liberal TED Talk energy and finally snaps. What's her master plan? Stage a Robin Hood heist using her local fling Kai. Steal a rich lady's jewelry. Redistribute the wealth. Easy. Until, surprise, Kai gets caught. Probably ruined. Meanwhile, Paula goes home with nothing but guilt and a new entry in her notes app titled, Why I Shouldn't Plan Crimes. She tried to fight the system, and the system laughed in privilege. Rachel, meanwhile, is fighting for her soul, married to Shane, walking credit score in boat shoes. She wants to be independent again, to ditch the trophy wife starter pack and write real stories. She literally says, I think I made a mistake. And then she folds, goes back. Picks misery with perks over freedom with fear. Because apparently if the bed has 2000 thread count sheets, you can learn to ignore the suffocating dread. Tanya, our grief goddess, spreads her mom's ashes like she's finally moving on. Then immediately trauma bonds with the first man who calls her special and slides into his boat like she's auditioning for Love Island. She's not healing, she's rerouting. Just shut up! Tanya promises to fund her dream wellness center, then ghosts her harder than a hinge match with a spiritual podcast. Belinda's left holding a binder and a broken dream, and still has to smile. And then there's Quinn, screen-addicted son of tech moguls, the only one who actually finds something real. He ditches the resort, joins native rowers on a canoe journey, and maybe escapes. It's ambiguous, but at least he ran towards something. Everyone else boarded the plane like zombies in designer shades. Now let's slide into the Roy Empire, aka White Lotus with more indoor lighting and way more trauma. Kendall is the poster child for escape plans that crash and burn. Season 1 tries to oust Logan, fails, ends up accidentally killing a guy, and becomes Logan's guilt-levered puppet. Season 2 goes on TV, exposes Logan's crimes, becomes the truth teller of the century. Season 3 can't keep the rebellion alive. Media won't back him. Family ghosts him. Ends up crying in an infinity pool whispering, Can I just not be in this anymore? Like, bruh, you are not in the company. You are the company. Shiv and Roman, they try the sibling unity arc in the finale. Plot to block Logan's power move. For one glorious moment, it looks like they might break free. Logan? No. Door locked. Roman looks like he's about to cry and joke at the same time. Shiv quietly imploding in couture. Even Tom, who's been playing the long game, finally sells out his own wife to gain footing with Logan. He wins. But now he's just deeper in the system, morally bankrupt with Logan's boot pressed gently on his shoulder blade. Why escape fails? The real talk. Because it was never about the lack of money. It's about the cages they built around themselves. In White Lotus, the guests want a transformative experience, but only if they can still sip $28 margaritas while doing it. In Succession, the Roys could literally walk away with billions, move to Portugal, and start healing. But no, they'd rather lose their minds than lose the game. White Lotus starts with a body, ends with the only person who truly snapped, Armand, being zipped into a bag. That's what happens when you try to break the performance. You die on stage. Succession ends with Kendall, Shiv, and Roman shut out of their own empire, not even worthy of a final word. They look at each other like, damn, we're just NPCs in Logan's storyline. Escape? That's fiction. Because in both shows, escaping means letting go of wealth, control, and status. And none of them can do it. Quinn rows off into the ocean. Everyone else drowns in the lives they chose. Okay, we've watched rich people fail at freedom. We have watched them emotionally implode, smile through breakdowns, and weaponize room service. But now let's get spicy and talk about how these two shows hit the same target, with completely different ammo. Succession is like watching Mount Olympus burn, but everyone's wearing Tom Ford and quoting shareholder agreements. We're not in that world. We're peeking through the keyhole. It's the king's court, as Mike White himself said. These people are absurdly rich, disturbingly powerful, and about as emotionally available as a tax shelter. We are not supposed to relate to the Roys. We are supposed to observe them like rare zoo animals. You don't think, oh, that's my cousin. You think, why is this man crying into a Birkin bag while launching a news app? But the White Lotus, that's your boss, your neighbor, your LinkedIn mutual with a yoga addiction. They are CFOs, freelance writers, college girls with $4,000 tote bags, and communist manifesto bookmarks. It's not fantasy. It's you, if your parents made slightly different stock investments. And White Lotus doesn't stop at the VIPs. It shows the staff, the locals, the people who clean up after vacation privilege. Succession's drivers and waiters, cameo appearances. White Lotus staff, collateral damage with faces and feelings. Succession has you laughing with the devil. Kendall botches a business pitch and you're like, King! Roman says something horrifying and you're like, ha ha ha. That's so Roman. It's funny, but it's also elegant, like watching a Shakespeare play written by the writers of Veep on. Okay, White Lotus doesn't want your LOL. It wants your cringe. You're not laughing with these people. You're watching Nicole yell about reverse oppression and trying not to throw your remote at the screen. You're watching Shane brag about his honeymoon while a literal coffin gets loaded into a plane behind him. The humor is drier than a white wine spritzer left in the sun. You are supposed to feel gross and maybe a little called out. White Lotus, someone dies. Like, actually dies. You start with a corpse and end with a smile from the man who might have caused it. The rich characters go home. The staff pick up the pieces. System reset. It's brutal in that real world way. Bad people won. Clean the towels. Succession? Nobody dies. Yet. Kendall's soul buried next to that waiter from season 1. Logan's heart locked in a steel safe under the Fox News building. Roman and Shiv's dignity somewhere in Tuscany sobbing quietly. It's a slow burn. Less death, more rot. Every episode is another chip off their humanity until you're not sure who's even salvageable. Succession is shot like a finance documentary during an earthquake. Handheld cameras, zooms that feel like suspicion made visual. Everything's jittery, tense, gray, and it matches the vibe. Paranoia, control, corporate trauma. White Lotus, lush, warm, peaceful, until the music starts. The tribal score kicks in and suddenly paradise feels like the backdrop to a ritual sacrifice. The camera lingers. It dares you to believe this is a relaxing getaway, while people emotionally bleed into their Mai Tais. Succession plays the long game. 3 seasons in, and suddenly you care about Roman. Kendall cries and you feel it. Shiv flinches and your heart breaks. This show gives you just enough humanity to make your soul whisper, oh no, am I relating to these monsters? White Lotus? No such illusions. Tanya might cry, but then she strings along a spa manager. Rachel might want to leave Shane, but she doesn't. You're allowed glimpses of humanity, but the show is always ready to smack the sympathy out of your hands like a martini you didn't pay for. You care, and then you cringe, and then you question yourself. These shows aren't opposites, they're reflections, drawn in different brushes. Succession is a tight character drama that spirals like a Shakespearean tragedy inside a media conglomerate. White Lotus is a social satire with the pacing of a vacation slideshow slowly turning into a horror film. Together, they ask the same question. What does wealth do to the soul? Succession answers, it isolates you, warps your relationships, and leaves you clawing for affection you can't even define. White Lotus answers, it rots your empathy, feeds your delusion, and leaves you smiling at the pool while someone else bleeds out. Different styles, same sickness. 2 shows, 1 therapy bill. So here we are, 1 resort, 1 media empire, 2 shows. Same haunting thesis. You can have everything and still feel like nothing. The White Lotus and Succession aren't just about rich people behaving badly. They're both slow motion identity crises wearing Gucci. They are existential dread with room service. And now that the yachts have docked and the jokes have faded, we're left staring into the designer void wondering, what the hell was all that for? Let's break it down. These people have the stuff, the money, the views, the nameplates, but inside, they're all leaking meaning, leaking identity, leaking whatever humanity that's left that didn't get buried under board meetings and wellness retreats. Kendall Roy tries to fill the gaping emotional pit inside him with press conferences and Percocet. Tanya cries over her mom's ashes, then emotionally kidnaps a local spa manager like a discount guru. Shiv has no idea who she is unless she's standing in opposition to daddy. Rachel wants independence but falls faster than a complimentary bathrobe. Even when they try to escape, they boomerang back to the same trap. Maybe if I win the game, I'll feel whole. Spoiler, they don't. It's gambling. And here's the sinister twist. These shows, they're not just about them, they're about us. Yeah, we're not flying private or snorting Xanax off a yacht. But if you are, congrats, I guess. Still, how many of us have chased status, likes, career glow-ups, thinking it would unlock happiness like a cheat code? We grind for promotions, launch our little side hustles, post highlight reels with soft lighting. And sometimes, it still feels empty. Succession and White Lotus aren't warning us about those people. They're whispering, you're on the same track, just with fewer zeros and less linen. The game, rigged and eternal. Nobody cedes their privilege. We're all just trying to win the game of life. And that is the tragedy. The real currency isn't money, it's status, control, the illusion of winning. That's why Rachel stays, why Shiv claws, why Belinda smiles, why Kendall breaks. They all think if they just tweak one variable, marriage, job, betrayal, suite upgrade, they'll finally be free. But they're just redecorating the same cage. The final shots say it all. Succession, Kendall, Shiv and Roman locked out again by their own father, by their own parents, and the door doesn't even creak. White Lotus, everyone boards the plane, one dead body down, no lessons learned, except maybe Quinn, who runs barefoot into the ocean chasing something real. You know what that is? That's hope. Small, fragile, but it's there. So what's the point? The point isn't to hate the rich, it's to understand that having more won't make you feel more, that power doesn't fix emptiness, that maybe the biggest lie we're sold isn't you can be rich, but being rich will fix it. Both shows hold up a mirror and say, you wanna win? Cool. Just don't lose yourself trying. There's no neat bow here. Only silk ropes that look pretty while holding people in place. Succession will keep spiraling. White Lotus will move to a new resort, new guests, same old demons. But the lesson sticks. Paradise is a fantasy. Power is a performance. Peace takes actual work. And if you're not careful, chasing the dream might just cost you the you that started it. That's the real finale. No logos, no sponsors, just a quiet moment of reckoning. So next time you see someone flexing their perfect life online or at a rooftop brunch, maybe ask, is this winning or just another performance? Or maybe you just log off and go find a canoe.